The crowd in the colony hall whispered nervously as Elira Voss was brought forward. Her hands were bound lightly, more as a symbol than for restraint. The council's chamber, made of cold metal and harsh lights, felt bigger than it should, its high ceiling echoing every small sound. Every eye in the room seemed to weigh her as though her life depended on their judgment, which, in a way, it did. Elira held her head high. She could feel the tension in the air, the mix of fear and expectation. The council members sat on their elevated platform, silent for a moment, letting the anticipation build. Their eyes were stern, unyielding. She knew what was coming. The accusation was simple but deadly. She had been blamed for the system collapse that had briefly cut power to the colony's life support. No one had actually proven her fault, but in a world where fear ruled, justice often came last. A tall counselor, his uniform tight and decorated with insignias, spoke first. "Elira Voss," he said, his voice echoing across the chamber, "you have been found guilty of causing a breach that endangered every colonist here. The laws of this colony are clear. There is only one punishment for your crime." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You will be sent to the Dragon Pit." A collective gasp rose from the audience. Even those who had doubted her guilt stiffened. The Dragon Pit was a place of legends, and the legends were frightening. They said that no one survived once they were thrown in. It was not just a punishment, it was a sentence to die. Mothers clutched their children, men looked away, and some murmured prayers under their breath. Elira's chest rose and fell steadily. She did not speak immediately, though the pit itself called to her in some unspoken way. Her thoughts raced, but she focused on one truth: she had to survive. She did not know how yet, but she would not give herself to fear. A second counselor, smaller and quieter, added, "The pit is ancient. It was once a place of learning and respect between humans and the dragons, long before your kind forgot their wisdom. Now it is a test few live to return from." He looked at her, his eyes unreadable, then motioned to the guards. "Take her to the pit." 2 guards stepped forward, their heavy boots clanging against the metal floor. They guided Elira out of the chamber, down the long corridor that led to the colony's edge. Outside, the sky was dim with the glow of twin moons, casting shadows across the barren landscape. Beyond the colony walls, the Dragon Pit yawned like a dark scar on the planet's surface. Smoke curled from its depths, and the wind carried a faint, strange warmth. As they approached, Elira felt something she could not name. Fear, yes, but also a strange pull, almost like curiosity. The stories she had heard as a child came back. The dragons were creatures of power, of intelligence, of mystery. They were not mindless beasts as most colonists believed. And now she was about to enter their world, whether by accident or fate. The guard stopped at the edge of the pit. It was wide, larger than any human-made structure, with jagged rocks forming a rough circle. The bottom disappeared into shadows so deep she could not see where it ended. Some colonists had whispered that the pit led to another world, one the dragons had made for themselves, hidden beneath the surface. No human had ever confirmed it. Elira took a deep breath. "I will survive," she whispered to herself. The words were small, but they carried strength. The counselor's voice rang out from above. "Step forward, Elira Voss. Your fate begins now." The guards nodded and gently pushed her toward the edge. She stepped forward carefully, feeling the wind shift around her. The pit seemed alive, almost breathing beneath her feet. She glanced down, expecting to see only darkness, but for a moment she thought she saw movement, a glimmer of light or maybe a pair of glowing eyes. She blinked and it vanished. A sudden gust of wind swirled around her, pulling at her hair and cloak. The edge of the pit was narrower than she expected, and the ground seemed to want to pull her in. She paused, balanced on the rim. Behind her, she heard the whispers of the crowd, their fear mixing with wonder. Some of them thought this was the end of her story, the final punishment to teach others not to question the council. Elira closed her eyes briefly, centering herself. Memories of her childhood came to her. Running across open fields, listening to the elders' tales of dragons who could speak without words, who understood more than any human could. She remembered the stories not as fear but as hope. Perhaps she thought hope could survive even here. The guards exchanged glances and gently nudged her forward. She stumbled slightly, then regained her balance. The wind roared and the shadows below seemed to grow. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she did not scream. She did not cry. She did not beg. And then she fell. The fall was longer than she imagined, though it felt both terrifying and strangely calm. The air rushed past her, carrying a scent of warmth, smoke, and something sweet she could not name. It was not the smell of death she had expected. Instead, it filled her with a strange sense of life. As she tumbled through the darkness, she caught brief glimpses of shapes that shimmered and moved, wings, scales, eyes, and firelight. The legends were true, but not in the way the colonists imagined. These creatures were not monsters waiting to devour her. They were watching. Alira's mind raced. She tried to remember everything she had been told, every story, every lesson about courage and intelligence. And one thought above all stayed with her. If she could earn their trust, perhaps she would not just survive, perhaps she could belong. Her body hit the ground with a heavy thud, but she did not feel pain as much as shock. When her eyes opened, she was not in a place of death. She was in a cavern, vast and glowing with strange light. Shadows of enormous wings and sinuous forms moved around her. The dragons were real, immense and magnificent, their scales reflecting colors she had never seen before. One of them lowered its head, its eyes fixed on her. It did not roar. It did not snarl. It simply studied her. And in that moment, Alira understood something she could never have guessed. The legends were wrong. The dragons were not the punishment, they were the choice. And for the first time she smiled through her fear. She had survived. Alira slowly pushed herself up from the cavern floor. Her body ached from the fall, but the pain was faint compared to the awe she felt. The space around her was enormous, far bigger than the dragon pit had looked from above. Glowing crystals hung from the ceiling, casting soft light across a wide cavern. Strange plants with translucent leaves swayed as if moved by a breeze, even though the air was still. Shadows of huge wings moved across the walls. Dragons of every shape and color circled gracefully, observing her without fear or hostility. For a moment Alira could not speak. Her eyes roamed over the magnificent creatures. Some had scales that shimmered like silver, others glowed with a faint golden light. Their eyes were intelligent, deep, and aware. They did not look like animals waiting to attack. They looked like beings who had existed for centuries, beings who understood life in ways humans could barely imagine. One dragon, larger than the rest, descended closer. Its scales were deep blue, and its eyes glowed softly, reflecting the crystal lights. It tilted its head and regarded her quietly. She could feel its gaze not as a threat but as a question. Who are you? Why are you here? Alira swallowed hard and spoke carefully, her voice echoing slightly in the cavern. I am Alira Voss. I was sent here, as punishment. But I am not here to fight you. I do not wish to harm you. The dragon made a soft sound, almost like a hum, and slowly circled her. It stopped a few feet away and lowered its massive head to her level. Its eyes studied her intently as if it could see through her thoughts. She felt a warmth spreading from the dragon, a silent understanding. For the first time she realized something important. The dragons were not mindless killers. They were observing, learning, and perhaps even judging in their own way. Alira took a cautious step forward. I did not deserve this punishment, she said softly. But I will do my best to survive, to learn, and to understand. Another dragon, smaller and copper-colored, landed nearby. Its wings folded neatly along its body, and it made a low, melodic sound. Alira noticed that the other dragons seemed to respond, shifting their positions and tilting their heads. It was as if they were communicating silently, and she was standing at the center of their attention. She realized the cavern was not just a hiding place. It was a world of its own. Rivers of warm water flowed between smooth rocks, and the air was filled with scents of minerals and flowers she had never known. Strange light patterns danced on the walls as if the cavern itself was alive. Somewhere in the distance she heard a deep, resonant sound, not quite a roar, not quite music. It made her chest thrum with both fear and wonder. Days passed. Alira did not feel the cold or hunger the way she expected. The dragons did not attack. Instead, they moved around her, observing, sometimes bringing her small gifts, shiny stones, sweet fruits, or glowing crystals. She learned to recognize their signals. When a dragon flapped its wings in a slow, rhythmic motion, it meant she was safe. When they circled quickly, it was a warning. She discovered that the cavern had levels, each more amazing than the last. Bridges of crystal connected islands of rock suspended in midair. Pools of glowing water reflected the dragons in perfect detail. She could hear faint voices, not human but not soundless either. The dragons were communicating through subtle vibrations and colors, a language she began to understand in small pieces. One evening, as Alira rested on a smooth rock, the large blue dragon approached again. Its eyes glowed more brightly than before, and it lowered its head until their faces were nearly level. Alira felt her heart race, but she remained calm. You are not like the others, she said quietly. You do not judge only by fear. You see me? The dragon made a soft hum. A memory flashed in Alira's mind, a vision of a time long ago. Humans and dragons had lived in harmony, sharing knowledge and wisdom. The pit had once been a place of respect, a connection between two species. Somehow, that knowledge had been lost over the centuries. Fear and misunderstanding had replaced trust. Alira realized that her punishment had brought her not to death, but to a chance few humans ever had. She was seeing the truth beneath the pit, the world the dragons had hidden from humans. It was a gift and it carried responsibility. Over the next week she explored further. She climbed crystalline cliffs, waded through warm streams, and watched dragons soar in graceful loops above glowing forests. She learned that each dragon had a role, guardians, scholars, and caretakers of this secret world. They did not speak as humans did, but she could feel their intent, their thoughts, their curiosity. She noticed that some dragons were hesitant around her, watching from a distance. Others approached boldly, nudging her gently with their heads, brushing her hair with soft scales. She began to understand that trust would not be given all at once. She had to earn it, and it required patience, courage, and honesty. Alira began to speak aloud to the dragons, even if they could not answer in words. She told them her story, how she had lived on the colony, how she had been falsely accused, how fear and misunderstanding had led to her punishment. She told them about the humans who feared the pit, and about the colony leaders who wanted to destroy anything they did not understand. The dragons listened. She could feel their awareness and their judgment, but there was no anger, no attack. Only observation. Finally, after days of cautious interactions, the large blue dragon lowered itself completely, allowing her to touch its scales. The sensation was not frightening but comforting, warm, smooth, and strong. She realized that the dragons had chosen to accept her, but she had also chosen to trust them. The moment was silent but powerful. Alira understood then that the dragon pit was never meant as a place of death. It was a place of truth. Those who fell inside were tested, not by fear but by understanding. The dragons were not monsters, they were guardians of a secret world, waiting for someone who could see them not as enemies, but as beings worthy of respect. And in that moment she felt something stir inside her, a spark of destiny. She had survived the pit, yes, but more than that she had found a new home, a hidden world, and a path no human had walked in centuries. The dragons had given her a chance, and she knew that she could not waste it. Alira smiled, brushing her hand against the dragon's warm scales. She did not yet know what lay ahead, but she felt ready. The truth beneath the pit was clear. She was alive, she was seen, and she had been given a choice. For the first time she realized that survival was not enough. To truly live she would have to understand, to learn, and perhaps even to lead. And in that silent, glowing cavern, surrounded by the dragon's eyes and wings, she felt the first stirrings of something incredible. A bond between human and dragon, a story that had waited centuries to be told. Alira woke to a warm light that filled the cavern. She blinked and saw the dragons gathered around her, their eyes glowing softly. The large blue dragon from before lowered its head toward her again. She could feel the weight of its presence, a quiet authority that demanded respect. Something was about to happen, she could feel it in the air. The dragons moved in a circle around her, wings brushing the cavern walls, sending ripples of light dancing across the crystal formations. Alira stepped carefully, sensing that this was not play but a test. She had survived the pit, she had earned their attention, but this was different. The air seemed charged, like the quiet before a storm, yet filled with a strange peace. A smaller, golden dragon approached, carrying in its mouth a glowing crystal. It placed the crystal at her feet and stepped back. Alira knelt slowly, reaching out to touch it. The moment her fingers brushed the crystal, a warm pulse ran through her, like energy traveling through her veins. She gasped as visions appeared before her eyes, not frightening but vivid. She saw dragons flying over forests, humans walking alongside them, exchanging knowledge and stories, building cities together. She saw the pit in its original form, a place of learning, not punishment. Alira looked up at the dragons. "I understand now," she said softly. "This was never meant to harm anyone. The pit, it was a bridge. You wanted to show humans something important." The blue dragon tilted its head as if approving her words. A soft hum resonated through the cavern, low and vibrating. It felt like a language she could almost understand, not with words, but with her mind and heart. She sensed the dragon's intention. They were offering her a choice, a place among them, a role that had not existed for a human in generations. Over the next hours, the dragons guided her deeper into the cavern. She walked carefully, her eyes wide with wonder. She saw enormous halls lined with glowing stones, bridges of crystal connecting floating platforms, and pools of water that reflected colors she had never imagined. Everywhere she looked, dragons moved gracefully, their presence both intimidating and beautiful. They did not speak, but she could feel their thoughts, a calm, steady rhythm that made her pulse in sync with theirs. At the center of the largest chamber, the blue dragon stopped. Its wings spread wide, reflecting the cavern's light like a living rainbow. Alira felt a mixture of fear and excitement. She had survived the fall, learned their ways and gained their trust, but now something greater was being asked of her. A circle of dragons formed around her, wings overlapping in a protective pattern. The air shimmered with energy, warm and vibrant. The golden dragon nudged her forward, and she stepped into the center. A strange heat rose from the ground, not burning but filling her with strength. The light from the crystals above grew brighter, bathing her in colors that seemed alive. Suddenly the air shifted. Alira felt a presence unlike anything she had known. It was not one dragon, but all of them combined, their power and wisdom focused into a single force. She felt it pass through her mind, showing her secrets of the cavern, the dragon's history, and the ancient alliance with humans. She understood how humans and dragons had once shared knowledge, how the pit had been a symbol of trust, and how fear had broken that bond. "You are ready," the blue dragon's presence seemed to say. "You are different. You see, you feel, you understand. You can bridge the worlds that others have torn apart." Alira knelt instinctively, overwhelmed but certain. I want to help," she whispered. "I want to learn from you to show humans the truth. I want to honor the bond we lost." The dragon's eyes glowed brighter, and she felt a warmth spread across her shoulders as if they were accepting her fully. She was no longer a visitor or a prisoner. She was chosen. The golden crystal pulsed once more, and she felt it merge with her, not physically but in spirit. A mark of connection, invisible to the eye but undeniable in essence. For the first time, Alira felt a sense of belonging. She was not alone in the pit. She had allies, guardians, teachers, and friends. She had been tested, not through pain or fear, but through understanding, honesty, and courage. The dragons did not seek to punish. They sought to reveal truth. Hours passed as she learned from them. They showed her how they perceived the world, how they communicated without words, and how they protected the cavern from harm. She realized that their wisdom was far beyond anything humans had achieved. But more importantly, she saw how humans could learn if only they approached without fear. When she finally rested, the blue dragon came close again. Its massive head lowered until their eyes met. In that silent moment, Alira understood something deeper. She was not being crowned in the way humans thought of rulers. She was being named a guide, a bridge between worlds, a keeper of an ancient promise. She rose to her feet, feeling the weight of responsibility but also a surge of determination. The dragons did not offer her power in the human sense. They offered knowledge, connection, and trust. That was far stronger than any weapon, any command, any law. Alira stepped forward and touched the blue dragon's scales gently. The contact was warm and steady, a silent pact forming between them. She spoke softly, her voice carrying through the chamber. "I will honor this. I will protect this. I will show humans that there is more than fear, that there is respect, understanding, and trust." The dragons circled her once more, wings creating a gentle wind that brushed her hair. Their hum filled the chamber, a sound that was both comforting and powerful. It was an unspoken acknowledgement that she was now part of their world, chosen by the ancient fire of their wisdom, and tasked with a mission no human had received in centuries. Alira felt tears rise, but she did not try to stop them. They were not tears of fear or sorrow, but of awe and hope. She had survived the fall, discovered the truth beneath the pit, and now she was chosen for something extraordinary. She took a deep breath, looking around at the dragons who had become her guides. "I will learn," she said aloud, "and I will return to the world above. I will carry your truth, and together, we will rebuild what has been lost." The dragons seemed to respond, their eyes glowing brighter, their wings beating slowly and powerfully. In that moment, Alira understood that the path ahead would not be easy, but it was the path she was meant to take. She had been tested, accepted, and chosen. And for the first time since she had been thrown into the dragon pit, Alira felt not fear but purpose. She was the bridge. She was the promise. And she was ready. Alira felt the pull to return to the surface, to see the world above the dragon pit again. The dragons had taught her much: patience, observation, and understanding beyond words. She had been chosen, but she also knew that her duty was not only to herself or the dragons. It was to the humans who feared what they did not understand. When she finally climbed the crystal bridges toward the cavern's exit, The dragons followed silently. Their wings created a soft wind that rustled the strange plants, and their eyes glowed faintly, a warning and a protection at the same time. Alira's heart pounded. She was returning not as a punished human, but as someone carrying the presence and trust of beings the colony had long feared. The first sight of the surface startled her. The colony lights shone faintly in the distance, and smoke curled from the engines and reactors. The settlement looked the same yet different. Somehow, it felt fragile in a way she had not noticed before. She could sense the fear that humans carried, the fear that had condemned her, the fear that had shaped the dragon pit into a place of punishment. As she stepped onto the rocky edge of the pit, the first humans appeared. Guards and council members had come to watch, expecting a corpse or perhaps a broken figure. They froze as they saw her standing there, unharmed. Her hair was windswept, her eyes shining with confidence, and behind her, shadows moved, shapes they could barely recognize. Alira lifted her hand, and the blue dragon stepped into view. Its immense size cast a shadow over the crowd. Others followed, their wings spreading wide and reflecting the moon's light. There was no roar, no attack. Only presence, power, and awareness. The humans froze, whispers turning to murmurs, murmurs into cries. Some ran. Some hid. Others simply stared, unable to move or breathe. The council leader stepped forward, raising his hands. Stay back. Do not approach. His voice was sharp, trembling with fear. This cannot be possible. Alira took a deep breath. It is possible, she said clearly, her voice carrying over the stunned crowd. The dragon pit is not what you believe. These creatures are not monsters. They have waited for someone who could understand them, someone who could see beyond fear. The golden dragon shifted slightly, wings brushing the rocks, and a soft warmth radiated across the crowd. Some colonists instinctively stepped back, but others remained, drawn by something they could not name. The air felt alive, charged with energy and intelligence. A counselor whispered urgently to the leader. They could destroy us. We cannot fight them. The leader nodded, eyes wide, realizing the truth. For years the humans had feared what they did not know. And now the unknown stood before them, calm but undeniable. Alira stepped forward, holding her hands open. I am not here to harm anyone, she said. I have been chosen by the dragons to carry their truth, to be a bridge between your world and theirs. We can coexist. We can learn from each other. But only if fear does not rule us. Some colonists murmured in disbelief. She speaks for them, one said. Can a human? Others shook their heads. They had only ever known dragons as monsters to fear, not allies to respect. The blue dragon lowered its head, keeping its gaze on the humans. A ripple of energy passed through the ground, subtle but impossible to ignore. The colony's machinery, reactors, and lights suddenly stabilized. Systems that had been unpredictable for weeks now hummed with steady power. The humans gasped, realizing that the dragon's presence was not destructive, it was protective. Alira realized that this was the turning point. She could feel the dragon's power, their wisdom, and their intent. They were not here to attack. They were here to demonstrate that fear had never been necessary. The pit, the legends, the punishments, they had all been misunderstandings. She had survived because she could see the truth, and now she had to show it to the colony. She spoke again, her voice firm. These dragons are not our enemies. They are our guardians, our teachers, and our partners if we choose to see them as such. But you must decide. You can continue with fear, suspicion, and punishment, or you can learn as I have, that understanding is stronger than force. A silence fell over the colony. Even the guards and council members could not speak. The dragons moved gracefully, their wings shifting in unison, a silent message of patience and power. Some humans knelt instinctively, sensing that this was something greater than themselves. Others stayed frozen, torn between disbelief and awe. The council leader finally spoke, voice quivering. We have been wrong. We feared what we did not understand. He glanced at Alira. And you have changed everything. Alira nodded. Not me alone. The dragons and I together have shown what is possible. Fear is not the way. Respect and understanding are. A soft hum spread through the dragons, resonating with the humans' hearts. Many felt a calm wash over them, a strange sense of connection that no words could explain. Machines continued their steady hum. The colony lights glowed steadily. Even the wind seemed softer, carrying warmth instead of dust. Whispers spread through the crowd. She survived, and they listened to her. They are not monsters. Maybe we have been wrong all this time. Alira realized that the fear she had expected from the colony was real, but so was curiosity. Some colonists were already stepping closer, observing the dragons with awe rather than terror. Others still hesitated, but the seed of change had been planted. The blue dragon lowered its massive head one final time, and Alira placed her hand gently against its scales. The connection between them pulsed with warmth, a silent reassurance that she was not alone in this task. She turned to face the colony. "I will guide you," she said, "but you must listen. You must learn. And you must remember that fear is not our master, it is our choice to rise above it." The humans looked at her and slowly the first signs of hope appeared. Some nodded. Some stepped closer. A few dared to smile. The dragon's presence was no longer a threat but a promise, a chance for a new understanding between species. Alira felt a surge of purpose. The world above had begun to fear, yes, but fear could be changed into respect. She had survived the pit, learned the truth beneath it, and been chosen by the dragons. Now she would guide both humans and dragons toward a future they had once lost. And as the moons shone over the colony and the dragon pit, Alira knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The time of fear was ending. The time of understanding was beginning. Alira stood at the edge of the dragon pit, the cool night air brushing her face. Behind her, the dragons moved with quiet grace, wings spreading and folding in a rhythm that seemed alive. The humans who had gathered watched in awe, some with disbelief, some with curiosity. No one moved too close, but no one dared leave either. This moment was different. Fear had begun to fade, replaced by something new, hope. She took a deep breath and turned to the dragons. "It is time," she said softly, though her voice carried across the rocks. "The humans above need to see the truth. We can build a bond not with fear but with trust." The blue dragon stepped forward, lowering its massive head, and the golden dragon mirrored the gesture. Others followed, forming a protective circle around her. Alira realized that they were not just her guardians, they were allies, her companions, her teachers. Together, they would show the colony that coexistence was possible. The humans began to approach cautiously. Some kept their distance, while others took a step closer, drawn by the calm strength radiating from the dragons. A young girl no older than 10 crept toward Alira, her eyes wide with wonder. "Are they friendly?" she whispered. Alira smiled. "Yes," she said. "They are not monsters. They are more than we ever imagined. But you must listen and you must respect them. Fear has no place here." The colony council, still hesitant, stepped forward. Their leader raised a hand, seeking to maintain control. We do not know what to do," he said, his voice trembling. "These creatures, they are powerful. We cannot risk angering them." Alira shook her head gently. "You do not need to fear them. You need to learn from them. The pit was never meant to punish. It was a place of wisdom, a bridge between humans and dragons. That knowledge has been lost for centuries. I can help you understand if you are willing to listen." A murmur spread through the crowd. Some humans looked at each other, unsure if this was real. Others could feel the warmth, the calm, the presence of the dragons, and their hearts softened. Slowly they began to step closer. Alira held out her hands, inviting them to see what she saw. "Come," she said. "Look at them not as monsters but as beings with their own lives, their own intelligence, their own feelings. If we can learn to see, we can live together." The dragons responded subtly. The blue dragon lowered itself closer to the humans, its massive head near the ground. The golden dragon spread its wings slightly, not as a threat, but as a demonstration of strength tempered with peace. The humans felt it, power that was patient, authority that did not demand submission, wisdom that did not seek domination. One by one, humans stepped forward, touching the ground near the dragons, observing their movements, feeling the warmth and life that pulsed from them. Some tentatively reached out toward the scaled wings, and the dragons did not flinch. They allowed contact, teaching humans that trust could be given as easily as it could be withheld. Alira watched, a quiet satisfaction in her chest. She realized that this moment was the beginning of something far larger than herself. The colony, once ruled by fear and misunderstanding, was learning a new lesson, that courage was not in attacking what was unknown, but in understanding it. Over the following days, Alira guided the humans and dragons together. She showed them how the dragons communicated with colors, vibrations, and subtle movements. She explained the history of the pit, the ancient alliance that humans had forgotten, and the responsibilities that came with such knowledge. The colony began to change, slowly at first, then with growing confidence. Children played near the edge of the pit, laughing as small dragons swooped above them, careful not to touch but close enough to be seen. Scientists studied the dragons not with fear but with curiosity and respect. Farmers and engineers began to understand that the dragon's presence could help their crops, stabilize the climate, and even repair broken machinery. Alira herself became a symbol. She was no longer just a punished human or a survivor of the pit. She was the bridge, the one who had earned the dragon's trust and could carry that wisdom to the humans. People called her the Dragon Princess not because she ruled them, but because she represented the bond between two species. Even the council learned. They visited the cavern carefully, guided by Alira, and witnessed firsthand the dragon's intelligence and cooperation. They began to change laws, creating spaces of learning and communication rather than punishment. Fear was no longer the measure of justice. Understanding was. One evening, as the twin moons rose high over the colony, Alira stood beside the blue dragon. Its massive head rested near her shoulder, and she could feel the warmth of its presence. The golden dragon circled above, wings reflecting the moonlight in patterns of gold and silver. She looked at the colony in the distance. Lights twinkled like stars, but they no longer seemed fragile. Humans walked openly near the pit, and small groups discussed with the dragons quietly, learning from them and each other. She smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. "Thank you," she whispered to the dragons, "for trusting me, for letting me see, for giving us a chance." The blue dragon hummed, a low vibration that she felt in her chest. The golden dragon landed lightly beside her, brushing her arm gently with its wing. No words were needed. They understood each other fully. Alira knew that the legend of the dragon pit would change forever. It would no longer be a place of fear, punishment, or death. It would be a place of learning, respect, and connection. A story would spread across the colony and beyond, of a human who survived the impossible, who understood what others could not, and who brought two worlds together. She turned to the dragons again. "Together," she said softly, "we will show the world what is possible." The dragons circled her once more, their wings beating in harmony, sending ripples of air and light across the rocks. Alira felt her heart swell with hope. The bond between humans and dragons was fragile, new, and full of promise, but it existed. She had survived the pit, learned the truth beneath it, been chosen by the ancient fire, and returned to guide both species toward a future that was brighter than any legend had promised. And under the twin moons, the dragon pit glowed gently, no longer a place of fear, but a symbol of trust, courage, and the new legend that would endure for generations.